as usual, a lot of happening, but now I can honestly say we're in the final phase. You mentioned something to that effect right before we went on the air. This is it. This is the climax. This is it's a climax of the climax. This is the height of the climax. This is the part of the multi-year dollar decay that's reaching the point where the United States commits financial suicide. How's that for a description?
Yeah. How's that to start a show with? Yes, indeed. And if you saw this new proposed bill,
to hell with the Biden. To hell with the Biden show. I'm talking about U.S. policy now, isolating itself. I've got a list of things. I mean, we want to talk about Ukraine, and we got no holds bars, right?
Mm-hmm. Hold on just a sec, Jim. I just want to make sure people are seeing us in the Rumble video stream. Let me bring this up here. I see that we're streaming live. So guys, hit the play button. I think some people are still waiting for this stream to come up. We are running now. We are running now. Okay, people say okay now. Okay, so guys can hear me. Okay, and thank you so much for that super chat or Rumble. Give me the truth. Nice to see you here, JC Shannon. Thank you so much, Shannon. Appreciate that. Okay, Jim, we are good to go. And yes, folks, this is uncensored, no holds barred. We're trying this on Rumble here for the very first time. So a big thank you to all of you supporting us with those Rumble super chats. I really appreciate it. Jim, back to you.
Okay, but did they hear my opening comment?
Let's repeat that just to make sure, because quite a few people were not.
We are in the climax of the climax for the decay of the dollar. This is a multi-year process. I told people way back 2016 and 17 that we are about to hit the long down ramp for the dollar. And it was a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, we started to hear about the term de-dollarization. Now we're getting a climax. And this is where the United States, regardless of who is making the comments or executive orders or the policy or whatever, this is where the United States commits financial suicide.
Do you think it starts with this Stop the Gold Russian Act?
No, it started... Well, this is a 4-year process. So where did it start? The most recent part started with the isolation attack and propaganda against Ukraine. Mm-hmm. It started with more and more pressure for Nord Stream 2. It's kind of an extension. Notice that it's happening right at the end of the pandemic bullshit. So the pandemic is gone. The pandemic is, how shall I call it? Exposed, denuded, put on stage without any clothes on, completely vilified. Stocks are falling for big pharma, and suddenly there's an attack on Ukraine, blamed on Russia. I call Putin the sheriff. And the sheriff has decided to clean out Ukraine. It's the last stand. I said back in, you can bring up the shows. I said in December, Geneva and Ukraine are the last stand. We don't hear too much about Geneva, but let me recite what's going on in Ukraine. And the ones responsible for activity there are the US, UK, and European cabal. It's the Davos maestros. Are you ready for this list, Jean-Claude?
Let's hit it, man.
You're probably aware of most of them, but I bet you there are a couple you hadn't heard. I put my thoughts together, and it took 10 minutes, but here's the list. The focus is on the cabal activities in Ukraine for the following: child trafficking, child blood harvesting, narcotics trafficking, white woman trafficking, human organ trafficking, biolab virus development, money center banking for money laundering. By that I mean money laundering in banks that don't have client services, theft of Russian Gazprom gas flows, Western Reconstruction Fund confiscations, Western fraud to sack Ukrainian businesses and corporations, experimental usage of Ukraine population on virus propagation, experimental usage of micronuclear weapons, recruitment of violent psychopathic mercenaries. And there's more. But did I overlook anything?
I was going to say, it's a nice place to go vacation.
I got a very strange story that was told to me a couple of days ago. It was by a fellow in the United States, and he said, Jim, I've got a long-term European friend. He has ties in Ukraine, and he went recently to Ukraine to try to help the refugees. And he said there were 200 or so, 150, 200 different refugees, natives from Ukraine. They were a bit disheveled because they were running. They were getting away. They didn't have their best manner, dress, hairdo. They just got out of town. And he said of the 200, about 2/3 of them were women, and half of them were absolutely gorgeous. And he said these were not selective women coming out of, like a prostitution parlor for abuse by the Ukrainian officials. These were just regular women. He said they were just gorgeous, one after the other. All right. Now, what's happening in Ukraine is that there's a group that the American public and European public must begin to comprehend. It's the Azov right-wing militia, AZOV. They're doing ethnic cleansing in the eastern provinces of Donetsk and Luhansk. They call their provinces oblats, but let's just call them provinces because we know what that is, especially you guys in Canada. We call them states. Australia calls them states. Ukraine calls them oblats. But in the far eastern provinces of Ukraine, they're ethnic Russians and they speak Russian. The Azovs went in there and killed 40,000 of them. We're not talking about isolated killings. We're talking about typical old Yugoslav ethnic cleansing. It's back. Just like what happened in Bosnia, Herzegovina, Serbia, the ethnic cleansing. They killed at least 40,000 ethnic Russians. I heard a story where they threw some older women off porches to their deaths. They just incredible crimes against humanity. And the Ukrainian press sells it as the Russian military killing the civilians. Right. So we got propaganda that's dead wrong and needs to be exposed. You're not going to get it on the Western press. To me, it's a race. We've got a race with the Western press for who is going to first talk properly about the pandemic, the virus in Ukraine. The ones that talk properly are not going to have their assets sacked. The ones who don't and are stubborn to the end, they will be sacked. Their assets will be totally gone, and their vice presidents and board of directors are going to be arrested, and some of them for treason. Now, I had an interesting question given to me a few days ago. Jim, what the heck is sedition? What do you mean? Because you distinguish it from treason. And I say, yeah, treason is actively working against the government in a betrayal, taking up arms, doing actual deeds, like, for instance, hijacking the food supply. It's not a weapon. Hijack the food supply, going to the military. Okay, that's an act of treason. Okay, sedition is supporting treason, like what big tech is doing. Censorship, not talking about the VAERS, not talking about vaccine AIDS, not talking about the damage with heart attacks and all kinds of things, not talking about the dangers of the vaccine, not talking about the false medical data. That's all sedition. There are two levels of treason. And what we have often done is called the worst part of treason, where people are killed, where people die quickly. We call that high treason, like 9/11. That's high treason. Okay, I got a funny little story to tell you, because I don't think I said this before. And if I did, please forgive me. But so what if I did? I've got a client from the Northeast U.S. He just went to a going away party, a retirement party for a friend of his that he's known for many years. I think he said, like, I've known him for 15 or 18 years, something like that. And the guy retired from Homeland Security. And there were a number of people from his work at the going away party, a number of people who knew him from, like, the neighborhood or community. And then there were other people who knew him, like my client. He might have been a work friend from years ago. I don't know the exact details. But he pulled aside my client and said, "Hey, Joe, I can finally tell you." Did I tell you this story?
No.
Was it on our pay-per-view? Okay, good. Because it's new and it's juicy. He said, "Joe, I can finally tell you. I've been at Homeland Security for a long time, and I've never been in a position to tell you what's going on, because I didn't want to lose my job. I didn't want to lose my pension, but now I'm not on the job anymore, and all the mass arrests are true. All the tribunals are true. All the expansion of the tribunals into the White House are true. All the arrests are true. All the executions are true. Everything is true, including the doubles for some of the people who are replaced. It is all happening, and it is happening now."
Wow.
Yeah, that's a wow. That is a big wow. And, my client couldn't put the emphasis in tone that I do, because he wrote to me.
Well, he ain't no Jim Willie. Jim, let's backtrack here about the news. You just mentioned that it's going to be a race in the West here for the news to actually report the truth. What do you make of this story here? Of course, you and I talked about this when it first came out, that Zucker had resigned from CNN on this weird sexual allegation charge. Just the other day, he received $10 million here as, I guess, a parting gift. But do you think this move here perhaps is positioning CNN to be maybe the leader in the West to actually start telling the truth? What are you hearing behind the scenes of what's happening with CNN? How does this tie in?
CNN has not been a quiet story for quite a while. For a long while. I got quiet and quite there. I got to be careful about my English. It's been a long time in the news. Now, remember, there's something very important, and you will remember this. Like, if you do carpentry work, you fix the worst piece first because it looks so bad. And then your whole wall doesn't look horrible anymore, but what's gone? The worst part. The last shall be first. The rescue of the prodigal son. You can go on and on with the examples. But I heard, it was about a year ago, might have actually been a little longer than a year ago, that a couple of the vice presidents at CNN were captured for treason and child trafficking and child ritual kills. All these things I don't want to talk about.
Right.
But they were captured and they were handled. And I think some of them flipped. And we don't know exactly who it was, and we don't know how many it was. But the only news network that was mentioned, it was early 2021. The only one mentioned was CNN. And then you had that Don Lemon jerk. He was arrested. And he was implicated in the Vatican attempted kill assassination of Trump. And Donna Brazile of CNN also was implicated in the Vatican attempted assassination of Trump. But what I have heard, and you know, very hard to very hard to verify much. You get bits and pieces to verify, and it's just the din of war. But I heard that Brazile did not get replaced. I don't know where she is. I don't know what she's doing. She might be here and there. Don't know. But Don Lemon got replaced. And it was a pretty good replacement. He looks a lot. He looks a lot like the original. Now, we got something very unusual to comment about regarding replacements. If it's a replacement of Trudeau, the English-speaking Canadians will not notice that his French accent is different. I suspect you have noticed that.
There's a couple of videos that, first of all, doesn't look like him. He was very poofy and puffy, but the accent was off as well, yes.
I had a French-Canadian client contact me 3 weeks ago and said, Jim, you have thought that I'm Eastern European, but I'm actually French-Canadian. I said, yeah. I thought he was like, you know, a Czechoslovak Canadian, but he was actually French-Canadian because he never let on that he spoke French. He never let on. He has an unusual name, an unusual last name, and it just seemed like Eastern European. My mistake, but that's okay. He said, Jim, the new Trudeau, we call him the pudgy Trudeau. The pudgy Trudeau has a different French accent. Okay, now, if it's a black person like, say, Oprah Winfrey, and she gets replaced, what portion of the population, the general population, can actually say, well, I remember what she looked like a month or 2 or 3 or 4 ago. No, we remember what she looked like a few years ago. So the replacement of a black person is not noticed well by a white person. A replacement of a French-Canadian person is not noticed well by an English-speaking Canadian or American. And I'll never forget the dumbass comments that I got 4 years ago, 5 years ago from people when I pointed out the old Hillary versus the new Hillary following the October 2016 CNN debate. I said, that's the old hag versus the new one who's 25 years younger. And the dumbasses said, well, maybe she just had a really good makeover at the salon. Yeah, maybe. And maybe you have an active working brain stem. Not. Okay. There are many more who've been replaced. The replacement of Governor Newsom in California was so bad that he went on vacation to the Baja of Mexico and made up a story that he's recovering from COVID. Okay, notice that we got it right all along on COVID, and now we deserve praise from all the normal morons out there, like my college roommate who said to me, Jim, you think you know more than the doctors? I said, no, I just don't profit from your death. And I'm more honest. I don't get a bribe to shut up. And he cut me off in the middle of that response. Okay, so I wrote him later and said, I sure hope you got the placebo, Tommy. And
that you don't have AIDS.
Well, we're going
to... myocarditis.
I think he got...
sponge brain. Go ahead.
Or abortionitis. Or vaxabonerosis.
Yeah, I don't like that one. It gives me the EBGBs just when you say it.
I got a friend who knows 5 men who had vaxabonerosis, and one ended up with a divorce right quick.
Oh my God, I can imagine. Hey, before we go too far, I wanted to bring back this idea of Trump. You mentioned Trump and the assassination attempt and Donna Brazile, all this stuff. What did you make of this here a couple of days ago? Trump's plane was forced down here, emergency because of a supposed problem with one of the engines. I believe it was the right engine. Did you hear anything about this in the back channel?
I heard that the last small paragraph was And Trump was not even on the plane.
Ah, interesting.
It was his other double that was on the plane. Or it was the one that they faked out on the news, the press corps, to lead to believe that he was on the other plane. Let me just say something about these presidential planes, Air Force One, etc. They're the most meticulously maintained aircraft on the planet. So if there was something wrong with that plane, it was sabotage.
Yeah.
The same goes for Marine One, the helicopter. And I don't have recent information, Jean-Claude. I don't know, for instance, if the call sign of the planes that Trump is on are called Air Force One still. I don't know. I don't think so, but I'm not sure. Let me continue about Ukraine, because Ukraine is the break point. Ukraine is, it's not a straw that breaks the camel's back. It's the barbell that breaks the cabal's back. It's loaded with weight. It's like a 300-pound barbell that's going to crush their necks, their tracheas, and their spines. Now, this is going to sound pretty harsh, but we're not going to get any remedy for the financial structures until these guys are all killed. I got constantly the question, Jim, when are we going to see the silver price and the gold price go up? And I said, when these guys are killed, or it looks like they're down to their last few. Okay, they hate me. They have sticked. I don't know if you know that word in English. They have sticked, not dogs on me. They've sticked demons on me. And I say, fuck you. They have messed my life up. And I say, go to hell where you really belong, where you long to be. Okay, we are very near the point where the vast majority of the top layer is missing, flipped, stripped, or killed. I said 5 years ago that the middle level is going to be flipped, stripped, or killed. By flip, I mean turn state evidence, help out to capture more of the higher-ups. By strip, I mean they weren't cooperative and they decided to move to the wayside, not participate in the big game anymore. But since they didn't assist, they were stripped of their wealth, down to their last 2 or 3 billion. And you know, they have to struggle with the last 2 or 3 billion, you know, to make ends meet and to put food on the table with, it's a couple million, billion, not billion. Okay, and the killed, those are the ones who fired back.
Yeah.
Those are the ones who slit a throat among the special forces or the Interpol forces. They resisted with violence, so they were just taken out. Putin is the new sheriff in town. By the way, it is now becoming more publicized that the symbol on the I don't know, some Russian banner, I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's the old royal banner, but it has a fellow holding a sword, and he's got a white demeanor, countenance, and he's got a white horse, and it's trampling a serpent. So I say the White Alliance has recruited the white Russian leader. There it is. Now, I don't know exactly what that is, but that's not on the Russian flag. I think it's like their presidential seal or some official seal. I don't know. I don't care. But it's being circulated out there. Putin has said regarding the right-wing militias, pardon my voice, I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm going to be drained when it's done, but I don't care. Putin has said regarding the right-wing militia, they're Azov, they're Nazis, And I can tell you they're flying flags of the United Nations, NATO, and a red and white swastika. These are not regular Ukrainian army. Putin has said we're going to kill every last one of them.
Let's backtrack for the audience here. You just mentioned at the outset of the show that Ukraine here was one of the last strongholds. I did this special report last week. And again, we have a little bit of flack from it from some audience members because we're not really following the mainstream narrative when this came out. Of course, we suggest that perhaps there was something else below the surface. And of course, this was the YouTube version of things. But you and I did this episode 3 months ago, and we talked about sacking the capital here, the Illuminati capital itself here in Kazakhstan. Can you just go back a little bit to come back to today and why this ties in also now to the continued persecution that's happening now in Ukraine of these long-head skull and Illuminati members?
There are a number of points having to do with Kazakhstan. And I must admit that I didn't have it all figured out when it happened, I believe, in the beginning of January. To begin with, the capital of Kazakhstan is called Astana, which is very close to an acronym of Satan. Just keep that in mind. The symbols are everywhere in the city. Furthermore, I thought at the onset that there was some kind of an escape route that was being set up in Kazakhstan, and it turned out that what they were trying to do was make a second Ukraine. They wanted a second sanctuary in Kazakhstan, which is quite large, by the way. I mean, it's probably bigger than California. Very large. Ukraine, by the way, is the size. I did a check on this. I made a comment to somebody. I said, I'll check. So I looked at square miles for Ukraine. There was about 240,000. And so I looked up Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri. That's what Ukraine is equal to. 5 Midwestern good-sized regular states. Not the breadbasket of Kansas and Nebraska. No. Those are big states. Takes a long time to cross one of them. Most of a full day driving. Pennsylvania is another real long state, my home state. Okay, back to Kazakhstan. What I've heard more recently is that the cabal decided that they were under siege in Ukraine, to be sure, but they wanted to establish another location, kind of like for their retirement, refuge, whatever. So my original thought wasn't way off. They weren't necessarily escaping from Ukraine. They were trying to establish like a second Paraguay. They wanted another sanctuary, and they got kicked out. And here's the real big, important telling point regarding this adventure to reestablish Kazakhstan. They were repelled. They were resisted and defeated by what was told in our press to be a coalition of former Soviet Republic militaries working with the Russians. What I've come to learn is that the Russian Soviet military never disbanded. The Soviet military is still the Soviet military. They just have maybe a little bit different chain of command, and they call themselves the Shanghai Co-op Org.
Oh, wow.
The Soviet military is still in force. They still work cohesively, and they're working now in Ukraine. You don't have to say the Ukraine anymore. That's a change from a few years ago. But there's more about Kazakhstan. They try to do other different connections with trade, like to assure the supply chain, and that all got cut off and ripped out. So Ukraine is isolated. It does not have its little back door of Kazakhstan available, but I assure you that the underground network still operates to those locations.
Wow. Do we want to switch gears here? At the beginning of the show, I talked about this Stop the Russian Gold Act here that was introduced in our legislature on on Monday morning. And it's presumed to take effect here on March 11, which oddly enough, or coincidentally enough, is also the date that they're going to be turning off Russian access to the SWIFT payment system. And if you look at Cliff High's Substack writing from a couple of days ago, he was counting down the days to March 11. And this was before we knew this new Stop the Russian Gold Act. So it appears that March 11 here is a pivotal point, to say the least. In a chat the other day, he was saying, it's kind of the last day of our reality, similar to September 10th, 2001 was the last day of the previous reality, and then we went into a new reality. How significant is all of this, the removal of the Russians from SWIFT, and now also this legislation to try to prevent basically Russia, in a sense, from enacting a gold standard, because you're basically telling them you can't use the SWIFT system, and they're like, okay, we'll just use the gold to buy stuff, and suddenly we have a gold standard around the planet. Is that what's happening here right now? How do you play this out for the next maybe 5 days after the 11th? What are we going to see?
Well, you gotta get real clear. I'm going to do my best. I don't have everything figured out. The United States has been on a plan now for 4 years to punish and isolate those who don't like the dollar, those who don't favor the dollar, those who don't save in the dollar, those who don't trade in the dollar, those who don't use the dollar for everything. We've been isolating them, and it has caused a boomerang effect for more momentum in the de-dollarization. And there's no turning back from such different activities. The Russians and the Chinese pretty much have agreed on using the CIPS. I just got reminded yesterday by Litecoin Lisa, it's cross-border interbank payment system. It's not the Chinese international payment system. It's cross-border. It is going to be used a lot more. The CIPS, I call it CHIPS. It's going to be used a lot more by China and Russia. So what we have said is we're going to obstruct your Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. You didn't mention that, but that was a big card on the table. We have essentially coerced the Germans to turn off Nord Stream 1, which means the German industry and the German households are going to be lacking the gas supply. We forced the Germans to put a rope around their industrial neck. That's going to have a consequence. The Germans eventually will say, you know, Biden and you American, whatever the hell you are running over there in Washington or Atlanta, we're done with you. We're not following your suicidal lead anymore because you're doing damage to our country. You've done damage with the vaccine. You've done damage with Nord Stream policy. Now you're doubling down by having us turn off Nord Stream 1. So the biggest effects for Ukraine policy are going to be with Germany and France. Now, then we extended it to SWIFT, which, by the way, has undergone its own reforms to the point where SWIFT is not what you knew SWIFT to be anymore. I think it was a week ago that the new SWIFT was turned on. So the Russians might be laughing and saying, well, we got the new SWIFT working. Shove it up your ass with the old SWIFT that's now obsolete. But we got the new SWIFT and they're part of it. Russia, I think Russia will be part of the new SWIFT, and there won't be much that the United States and the European cabal can do about it. Okay, then we upped the ante even more and said we can't honor the Russian foundries for their gold bars. I think their attitude to that is going to be, we got plenty of customers. So we don't have you as customers, and you're going to go down on the sinking, paper, waterlogged, debt-logged ship.
Yeah.
So what the United States is doing, Jean-Claude, is with unbelievable arrogance, we're establishing what the next standard is going to be and who's going to belong to it.
Yeah.
It's the de-dollarization parade, and we're not in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're ordering some of our allies to go up against the wall and make a decision to join that parade with Russia and China.
Mm-hmm.
Europe cannot do without Russian supply across the spectrum. I put in the February report, posted almost 2 weeks ago, the end of February. I put in there that the Germans and the French are going to have to make a decision. Do we want to have shortages of natural gas with 3 times higher price, high gasoline costs, high diesel costs, or are we going to tell the U.S. to go to hell and follow the Russians in trade and pay in whatever form the Russians require? Because I believe the Russians are going to require to pay in gold. I got a little debate going on with some of my colleagues that the Europeans will not want to pay in gold for their energy to the Russians. And I'm really not clear on what the opposing argument is, because the Europeans are going to get drained of their gold when they know around the corner comes a gold standard, whether it's digital finance or not.
Mm-hmm.
So the French and the Germans, I think, will be the first to pull away from the Biden show if it's still around. I mean, golly, the Biden show gets more ridiculous with every month.
Every day.
I don't call it a Biden administration because it's not. It's a parade.
Yeah.
It's a parade to see who joins, and whoever joins gets followed and then arrested.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told that over 100 people in the U.S. Congress are now replacement people. We got just a crazy, this is not the Matrix. This is like an avatar more than the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Fulford calls Putin the avatar President Putin. And, I give him respect for being bold like that. But honestly, I don't care where this Putin came from. He's running the country. And there's no question that he's running the country. Unlike the clown Biden, who we're not really sure about, who has reports of a very serious, debilitating stroke 1 month after the fake inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
That was shown in France the night before it happened.
There are a couple of congressmen asking for him to get a cognitive test just last week too. I'm like, wow, that's odd that they're actually reporting that. So yeah.
Well, okay, that brings up the point about the press again.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually finish my point. I think CNN will be the first press network to convert.
Okay, that's okay. So you're on the same page as me. Okay,
convert to truth reporting.
Yeah,
because they've lost 90% of their viewing audience, Jean-Claude.
Exactly.
I mean, they come out with statements like, well, yeah, we're down 20% from last year. Yeah, but you were down 30% from the year before and 30% from the year before.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take 0.7 times 0.7 times 0.8, you're getting pretty damn small if you keep on following that percentage of retention.
Mm-hmm.
They're down to about 10% of what they were 5 years ago. And that reflects in ad revenue and requires narcotics money as supplement,
Mm-hmm.
so that they don't let go 80% of their workforce.
Okay,
back to Russia.
Yeah.
We're going to define the rules and regs for the departure from the dollar. And we're already getting momentum. Remember that it was 6 months ago that Biden released This just came, maybe it doesn't fit. I just can't avoid skipping it over. Biden announced the Colonial Pipeline gas supply was going to be redirected elsewhere or shut down. And actually it was redirected to China. So there's treason going on. Okay, let me just put that on the table, brush it aside, and move on. The de-dollarization is going to become a very big momentum move in the next several months. It's going to dictate the end of the dollar as the monopoly trade payment instrument, and will probably open up XRP as the transition instrument to handle a lot of load country to country for those who don't want to follow the dollar for whatever reason, whether they're cast out by the clowns in Washington or they decide for their own well-being they're not going to trade in the dollar and save in treasury bonds. The decay and failure gradually of the treasury bond is going to motivate a lot of people, a lot of entities to abandon the dollar and trade. Mm-hmm. Because the other side of trading in the dollar is saving your surplus in treasury bonds. And then they're seeing what's going on. I'm expecting a series of heart attacks for the treasury bonds the rest of this year.
I can imagine. Okay, we'll come back to crypto in a second here. I just had a slide up here. I was laughing a little bit here because Bitcoin yesterday was surging on the new executive order that Biden was pushing out on cryptocurrencies. I wanted to talk to you about XRP, Theta, and the shenanigans happening with Theta and Reggie, perhaps. We'll get to that, but I just wanted to finish the segment on the metals here for a second. Just yesterday, Alistair McLeod was posting on his Twitter that so far this month, he's talking about 1.1 tons of silver that stood for delivery at the COMEX, and we hit $27, I believe, yesterday. They seem to be working very hard to push it down here before the weekend's close here tomorrow. How do you think all this is going to change the world at the COMEX, the LBMA, in terms of delivery, but also in terms of price? There seems to be a lot of pressure. Gold is at the all-time high already. What's going on here in the next couple of days?
I'm just not typical when it comes to this topic. I think the COMEX is the tail on the dog. You're not going to get big price movements because of activity like Alistair. He's a great analyst, but is he looking at de-dollarization? Is he looking at nation after nation being pushed against the wall with high energy costs? He's looking at something narrow here.
Well, in that particular tweet, yes.
When has this mattered? When has this mattered a damn shit? Mm-hmm. When has COT mattered a damn shit in the last several years? Okay.
Never. But just like going bankrupt or a scam ending, it ends quickly all of a sudden, and suddenly it does matter. Are we at that point is what I was asking.
I think so, but you're talking about 25, 27. Are you talking about something over 30? Wake me up when it's over 30. Wake me up, because I've been told by Maxwell from Luxembourg. He resurfaced. He's a great guy. He had to play it safe and manage the safety and security of his family. That's all I'm going to say. But he resurfaced and said he confirmed that the Azovs are killing the ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine. But he also repeated to me that the COT, it's being managed. They got the Basel silver supply handed to the different agents and brokers. I think Credit Suisse is now being vilified for a lot of dirty accounts in Switzerland. The Swiss government is being pressured in unusual ways to give up the enclave where these cabal players live and operate. And if they don't, the rod of God is going to visit them. You know what I'm trying to say? The rod of God, a giant tungsten bar is going to fall on them. Okay, this is nasty stuff. But it was over a year ago. Remember, we hit 20 50 in gold and we hit 31 in silver, and it was something like July of 2020. Maxwell told me, Jim, an unbelievable amount of silver supply is being handed to a few different banks so they can make sure that it goes below 30. And it went below 30. So that is my break point. I don't give a crap about 25 or 27. That's noise. And notice that it got up to 27 and came right back down in your red line. So where's the power of that? It's nowhere. The power is going to be in Russia demanding German gold for natural gas supply. It's going to be Germany opening up Nord Stream 1 and 2 and saying, up your ass, Washington. We're not going to die for you economically. And that will lift the gold price. And those are events that are assured. I got my own way of thinking, my own marketing research background, what's important, what's not, what is the linchpin, what is the fuse. This is a lit fuse. And now the United States, whoever's running our clown show, I think the Rockefellers are running it. That's my belief. They're running energy policy and Davos is running war policy. That's my belief. I believe they've already crossed the line, Jean-Claude, and there's no turning back. We're now going to force our allies to move away from us.
I agree with you on that, and I agree with you on that. There's a bigger context in gold and silver, but I wanted to bring it down to this article here today too, or yesterday. These are Chinese billionaires losing billions here on margin calls after after nickel was halted, and you could see there that's a 250% surge in one day. I agree with you. When we see this in silver, we'll know, okay, there's something absolutely wrong.
That's exactly my point.
Right.
Let me see silver move to 42.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about what's going on behind the scenes in the silver market with delivery orders. Because right now, I couldn't yawn longer. I couldn't yawn.
There is tightness in the market, though. I was talking to
I don't care.
And those guys, I know that's not what's driving price. I agree with
I don't care.
But it's all seems to be happening at the same time is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's tightness. Big deal.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah. Well, it's a big deal for the guy out there who doesn't have silver, who understands that it's going much, much higher and who can't get it. Those guys are waking up to that fact right now because they haven't listened to you for the last 10 or 20 years when you said, hey, dollar cost average into precious metals. They haven't listened. So for those guys, it matters right now.
It matters because they might be paying a huge premium, but I've looked at what some of the premiums are, and they're not huge either. They're just bigger.
Yeah. 33% here on the maple in Canada on average right now. Premium.
How many?
33%. So the Canadian silver price right now is about $33 an ounce Canadian, and you'll pay 43 right now for a maple.
Okay, that's not small. So that's like an early indicator that you're on a march toward a bigger explosion.
And you're on the march. Guys are saying they're out, and perhaps in 4 to 6 weeks they'll be able to fill an order. So there's something weird going on. Again, I can't say that this is cracking the system, but it seems to be indicative of the market right now, maybe seeing what you're seeing, that we're forcing our allies here, and very suddenly we might have a de facto gold standard around the world.
What we might see soon is that the Russian gold foundry supply will be taken off the market and the gold price will hit 2,500. Nice policy, huh? Who are we punishing?
Exactly.
We're not punishing the Russians. The Russians will sell it through China. The Russians will sell it through Hong Kong and then Australia. They'll find a way to get it to the market, and they'll be laughing at the Biden show characters who are beyond silly now. They're suicidal silly. I just cannot laugh hard enough about the Biden show. We're on an intelligence test, and a lot of people are failing, but more and more are awakening to what lunatics are supposedly running the Biden show, and they're not running the show. I think Trump has been operating a devolution program. I'm told by my military sources that every 3 months he's re-inaugurated by the military. That means January, April, July, August, October, and then January again. Yeah. Because of course, I believe that the Insurrection Act has been invoked. Mm-hmm. And what we're doing right now is we're playing the last chapter of the artificial intelligence simulation warfare games.
Yeah. Let me just show this just so the people in the audience know what I was talking about here. Just an example, Ottawa bullion, close to where I live. So spot price in Canadian, 33.15 spot price. Most of the products are all sold out. But if you look at these Maple Leafs, as low as, so it's actually higher here if you're buying on your credit card or PayPal, lower than that. So you're at $43 almost here for one Maple. And that's pretty much across the board. The shops in Montreal are about the same as well. So that's a pretty high premium right now. And on top of that
is.
On quantity right now, they don't have quantity. And I keep hearing people sending me, reading emails that people send me that their local coin shop is giving them limits on how many coins they can buy because they just don't have the inventory.
There was an event about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Jean-Claude, and I believe it was a large amount of silver supply that was available to the dealers, but it got lapped up by about 5 people so that the public could not get their hands on it.
Wow.
5 whales, maybe sharks is a better term.
Yeah.
A whale is not necessarily aggressive. A shark usually is. Mm-hmm. My interpretation of that was we got extreme shortages, and the elite are going to do their dead level best to prevent the public from getting their hands on it, because if they begin to get their hands on it, they're going to like it, they're going to talk about it, and they're going to create a fever, and the elite don't want that.
I think the fever is already there. If you talk to Andy Sheckman, those guys they're on the phone 24/7. For every phone call, there's 4 in the queue already. Anyways, guys, these are the special for the Beyond Mystic audience. Still in stock now with Andy at Miles Franklin. You can find this at beyondmystic.net/silver. These are the 5-ounce silver bars at $3.29 over spot. Great deal there. And of course, the kilo bars here at $2.69 over spot. And if you're Canadian, you can also access the coupon codes for Beyond Mystic here on mfbullion.ca. And here we have the 10-ounce bars at $5.95 Canadian over spot, which is again, as you can see, relatively cheap compared to the other smaller denominations we were just talking about. Jim, let's get into
let me give you another data point on that. Data point on that. I have a fellow analyst who gets commissions on references for gold and silver sales, and he said it's the same quarter to quarter to quarter. It hasn't changed. So the sales are not way up. I think they're about to go way up. They're on the verge of going way up. And March could be the pivotal month. But as for February, no big rise. Not yet. It's coming, though.
Okay. Interesting. I'll get Andy back on the line probably on Tuesday for another update to see what he's got to say on that. But judging from the forums, you're right. February looked relatively normal. January was really high. So we're waiting to see here what's going to happen in March. But indication in the last couple of days, March looks like
March is the Ukraine effect.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, in the live chat now on the Rumble, I just put the links to mfbullion.ca and beyondmystic.net/silver if you want to get those discounts for your precious metals deals. Okay, that went through. Okay, Jim, let's get into some crypto. We're 54 minutes into the show here. We wanted to talk about XRP, some rumors behind Theta here, perhaps something happening there with Reggie as well. Where do you want to start? Well, generally speaking, we've just talked about precious metals here. We're going to take up part of this exodus out of the dollar. But how do you see that happening also for the cryptocurrencies? We're now seeing legislation around the world trying to prevent citizens from getting into crypto. We already have banks here in Canada, whereas before you can send your money from your bank to your exchange to buy crypto. Now they're closing the gates on you. So they're trying to prevent that exodus there as well. How do you see this transpiring here? Perhaps also because of Russia and Ukraine, because we see that Russians are also now chasing crypto in a big way, and Russia just introduced a bill last week letting their central bank sell Bitcoin to its citizens as well. So the landscape is moving under.
Would it be amazing if the Germans paid for Russian gas with Bitcoin temporarily as another signal to Washington?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta admit, I'm an honest broker, Jean-Claude. I don't have the top frontline information about cryptos. I get a lot of different pieces of information. There's something going on between Reggie and Theta Labs. Reggie Middleton tried to get Theta to sign up and join his platform, and they squabbled. They had a telethon. Just think of it like a teleconference, and someone got on and sabotaged it. It might have been a Wall Street troll. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm only told about it. But the squabble got worse during the show, and they turned it off. So we don't have good relations between Theta, the Theta Labs, and Reggie. And Reggie is turning out to be, oh gosh, I don't want to insult him in any way because I think he's a great guy, but he might have to do a little bit more fighting with knives and swords rather than pens and calculators. There's something going on where Reggie must get an additional group in order to attain a critical mass. And it's going to happen. He doesn't have a long window here. This has got to happen for Reggie because he's got the goods. And what he might encounter is opposition where they're all illegal, but they've got a lot of mass. And they're not in his camp. They're not working with him in a legal, cooperative manner. And we get some chaos in the crypto development world because Reggie wanted to be too peaceful about it. This is very delicate stuff. Reggie needs to sign on more and more partners and get critical mass before his opposition that operates illegally do so. There's something else going on that's very alarming. And Litecoin Lisa told me about this. She said there are a number of, just think of them as big bank entities, and they're trying to solicit like a large collaborative symposium kind of development. And what they're saying to the independent developers is, work with us and give us your proprietary crypto software, you know, the intellectual property. Give us your special IP, and we'll all work together toward an open source. But they're lying because they're not going to be working toward an open source. They're going to patent whatever the people volunteer for their software, their software development software, their crypto finance software. So there's a ruse and a sham, a scam going on with some Wall Street bank entities trying to get people like you and me, like we got something really cool and really special. We'd like it to be part of open source, and we'd like it to be big, to oppose the banks, to oppose the bond fraud, to get the blockchain working. And they're trying to con us into giving up our software development intellectual property, turning it into open source, and then they file patents on it. They file copyrights. This is very dirty game going on right now. And to me, it means that the Wall Street banks know that they're in a life and death situation. So they're trying to cheat in one of the worst, ugly manners. Dupe people. Okay, Do you remember the Microsoft business model? They called it date rape.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Microsoft business model from the 1980s? We're gonna have you meet our application software developers, and we want you to show us your source code. That's in that industry. It's called lifting your skirt.
Mm-hmm.
Show us your source code, because these are application software guys. Look at their business cards. A month ago, they were what do you call it? System software types. Ashton Tate was a victim. There are many victims of the date rape. They worked with the application software side of Microsoft, not knowing that they were the system software guys. And then Microsoft stole their work and patented it as the next product. That's what Wall Street is doing. They're copying the Microsoft business model. And it's very pernicious.
Oh.
I don't know how far it's going to go before it gets exposed too badly, but Reggie Middleton is getting advice now from his best friends. You're going to have to start suing people. You're going to have to play hardball, or else the critical mass is going to develop that's illegal.
The gloves are off.
Yeah, very much the gloves are off. And it's getting very dangerous now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look what's happening with XRP with the frivolous lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
That's going nowhere. It's just, when's the clock going to run out on no charges filed? And I got numerous clients who say, Jim, not numerous. I got about 4 or 5 or 6 who said, I have this account. It's a crypto exchange account. And when I try to buy XRP, it says not available. Okay, so they're obstructing investment in XRP. And I bet ya 10 to 1 that the Wall Street entities are buying XRP because they're blocking you from buying XRP.
Mm-hmm.
Now, last time we were on, we talked a bit about XRP. I think it's going to be the transition bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Look what these dollar managers are doing. They're pushing people off the dollar train.
Mm-hmm.
And they're developing the critical mass of the non-dollar crowd. Well, that critical mass is going to be using XRP to some extent. One of the most interesting consults I have, and I had one actually 2 days ago to this effect, was convincing the person that XRP is really not bad. It's probably an instrument for duping Wall Street.
Wow. We could do a whole show on that one. But like Cornelius, I agree with you.
I wouldn't have a lot to say. I just get the top lines, and I'm trying to get more and more information about this. But Garlinghouse of Ripple Labs is not nervous about having duped Wall Street so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I say what Garlinghouse is eventually going to do. I'm just speculating here, but the Ripple Garlinghouse CEO guy is going to say to Wall Street, you had no alternative.
Mm-hmm.
You had to climb on XRP. It's the dollar successor.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a very popular and widely used transfer method for trade and wire transfers. You had no alternative. If you didn't sign up, you'd be outside looking in. Now you're inside the game and without the total power that you thought you were going to have. But no reasonable person would expect to have total power within the digital finance space. So I didn't dupe you. You kind of misled yourselves. That's what I think is going to happen.
Wow. Fascinating. Hey guys, if you haven't already set up your wallets and your exchange, perhaps do it now before this panic to own moment that ClifI was predicting could be just around the corner now with all of these transitions we're seeing now in our financial worlds. Please check it out. This is the Beyond Crypto Panic to Own crash course. It's available now on our pay-per-view. And if you already have your crypto wallet and exchange set up and you want to have a leg up on which coins to trade, you can also check out the Beyond Crypto, a Hitchhiker's Guide here. This is where Janine and I follow quite a few of the cryptocurrencies and also gold and silver every month to give you some direction. And on top of that, you can check out the Astro Woo Finance. This is basically a personal zodiac's guide reading of your astrology and the tarot added here to your financial investments. Really cool show. Check it out, Astro Woo Finance on beyondmystic.net. And if you're just joining us now, yes, I'm new to Rumble. So please hit that like, share, and subscribe here to the new channel. We're going to try to populate this channel with more content. Of course, uncensored content is the promise here from Rumble. Speaking of that, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, ClifI will be back on the show for the Astral Temporal Marker episode here on SWIFT, the dollar system, crypto, gold, and silver. And of course, this is a takeoff of the Beyond Alta series I produced with him a couple of months ago. So we will be live here only on Rumble tomorrow, also at 2 p.m. Eastern, as opposed to the YouTube channel. So please do remember to like, share, and subscribe. Jim, is there anything else we're looking at this weekend? Perhaps with these Ides of March, there were rumors that perhaps the U.S. would become this new North American kind of trade zone, and Canada would fall into it with a new currency being pushed out. We heard rumors of ATMs here in Canada pushing out this U.S. dollar as opposed to Federal Reserve note. What do you think is going on with all of that?
I think that's a last step. The next step is banking problems. I've got a client who has $1 million Caribbean account, and it's frozen. We're going to have problems. I have a story told to me about a month ago. Someone had a $35,000 bank certified check. He deposited in Bank of America, and they did not put the funds into his account. So it's essentially stolen. I've got other clients who tell me that they're having limits on what they can withdraw. I think we're getting close to bank runs. Now, what you described might happen, but I think that's an end stage. We have more intermediate steps to come.
Well, here in Canada, last week, our finance minister also gave the powers to the bank to freeze your accounts, not because of you're supporting the trucker or you're supporting freedom, but in order to prevent bank runs. If you saw Marnstrom Economics, he was also reporting on his website that huge capital flows were coming out of Canada after this Executive Emergency Powers Act execution by Trudeau.
They have caused themselves a tremendous problem. What they do, and this. Think in terms of critical mass. I mention this once in a while, and it's really important. What they've done is they created a critical mass of Canadian citizens who don't trust their own banks and who make decisions as a result. And they're pulling their money out because they don't regard it safe. So because of the vaccine mandate, because of the follow-up with the truckers, because of the resistance against the truckers by Trudeau and his pudgy double, they've created a critical mass of resistance, and now they got a bank problem. So yeah, they might need to resist, might need to say reduce the ability to withdraw your money until things calm down. But it's not going to fix anything until they actually bring about some new laws and legislative procedures in Canada that indicates that they're done with this sham. They're done with the health rules. They're done with the vaccine pressure, and they're going to begin prosecuting these damn big pharma companies and get them.
Did you see that Pfizer removed from the stock exchange? What was it? I saw that yesterday.
New York Stock Exchange. They're not on the NYSE anymore. So that means, oh gosh, this is ugly. It means that those who wish to sell are going to be dominated by insiders. Let me say that differently. If you want to sell, you're going to be shit out of luck unless you're an insider. If you're, say, Fidelity, and you've got tens of thousands of investors in big pharma, you're not going to be able to unload.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do have the ability to unload, it's going to be at a price that's 70% lower. So this is an insider sweet deal policy. I tell you, it's just so dirty. Everything is so dirty. They're proving the point that the American, the U.S. financial markets are rigged. It doesn't matter what kind of market. They're all rigged.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about some other funds in my own family. I don't want to get into personal issues, but this is ugly. And, you know, I want to see their stocks go to single digits. I've got a very smart client who said, Jim, we now have absolute assurance that the Pfizer stock is going to go under $10.
Wow.
And it's not just Pfizer. It's whoever was involved. And your pudgy president made a false statement, and he's now under serious investigation. He made a statement that he had no vested interest in ordering the vaccine, but he's a major investor in a company that provides mRNA components to the major manufacturers. So he is involved at the component level, which is an involvement. So look for that stock to go to shit too. We're in the final fray. We're in the crunch time. And it's getting exciting, but it's also getting dangerous. And I'm more worried about my own survival than I've ever been. I thought I was in really big trouble last September. This is worse.
Wow.
Your fandom helped me in September. And unfortunately, a lot of those people who signed a subscription to the Hat Trick Letter did so with a flimsy PayPal temporary platform. And those were not migrated to the new payment system. So those subscriptions all ended. I need to contact I think it's about 35 or 38 of them.
Wow.
To make a new order because it didn't migrate to the new system from the flimsy PayPal platform.
We're on a new platform here with Rebel. Tell the new audience members here also how they can support you now at golden-jackass.com. What's the best way to support your work, Jim?
Make a newsletter subscription.